its first introduction in Congress. It is our centennial, folks, and we plan to get this job done. So, it symbolizes 100 years of this struggle to get liberty and justice for all, and all means all, right? We're not here to pass a law. Be clear on that. Laws are fickle. We just saw it with the Dobbs decision. Laws can be turned over in the next prevailing political winds. We are here to say we want constitutional equality. Nothing less than constitutional equality will do. We demand equality, ERA in 23. We demand equality, ERA in 23. We demand equality, ERA in 23. Okay, so you're gonna hear from top equal rights experts and leaders about the burning need to pass our all-new, all-inclusive state ERA ballot initiative. And what is it going to do? It's going to help address in our court systems violence, pay inequity, historical stereotypes, pregnancy discrimination, racial and gender disparities, and attacks on our bodily autonomy that thwart all women, whether LGBTQIA, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, white, women of color, and all our allies. So, we demand equality, ERA in 23. We demand equality, ERA in 23. The state ERA, the ballot initiative, is the most inclusive ERA language in the land. And it reads, equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied by this state or any of its cities, counties, or other political subdivisions on account of race, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, age, disability, ancestry, or national origin. So let's yank the Minnesota Constitution out of the 19th century, and let's make sure that we modernize the legal description, the legal interpretation of the word equality, because equality has no qualifiers. Equality is for all, and all means all. We demand equality, ERA in 23. We demand equality, ERA in 23. Okay, so why the ERA in 23? Well, you're going to hear about that, so hold on. And you're going to hear from a stellar lineup of equality lawyers here, while talking about the emergency nature of passing the federal ERA. Now, we've been working on this for 100 years, folks. Let's get it done, okay? Because the Constitution does not guarantee, nor has it ever explicitly guaranteed, all citizens equal rights under the law without regard to sex or gender. So, our all-new federal ERA tells us equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, right? And now that we've achieved all the constitutional requirements to pass the equal rights federal ERA into our federal constitution, we're telling Congress and our president to knock down the barriers and publish the 28th Amendment. That's what we're doing. We demand equality, ERA in 23. We demand equality, ERA in 23. So mark my words, the federal and the state ERA will get published. And a few years from now, folks will look back and wonder why anyone was ever against giving all citizens equal rights in the first place. So recently, Eric Holder, the U.S. Attorney General under President Obama, came to Minneapolis, and he spoke spoke about, he mentioned Alice Paul, the great suffragist Alice Paul, several times. And he said, he talked about her struggles and her grit. And he reminded us, and I will paraphrase him, that if the moral arc of history is to bend towards justice, then we must bend it. We must be the ones who bend history to make sure that it bends towards justice. So that's why we're here. That's why we're gathered. You're going to hear from great speakers. So we must do the bending. So let's get this job done. It begins today. It'll last all through the session. And we need you to come back and back and back and talk to your legislators and talk to your legislative leaders and say, we demand equality.
ERA in 23.
We demand equality.
ERA in 23.
Thank you, everybody. So now it is my great honor to introduce to you the president of ERA Minnesota, Suzanne Wilhite.
Thank you, Betty. And yes, I'm the volunteer president of ERA Minnesota, and I thank you all, supporters, volunteers, everyone, for showing up today. And as I look out that window, I see a lot of snow, so I know we have a lot of hardy Minnesotans here today. And we've lost a few from earlier, but we have an intention today. My question is, why do we need the ERA? You all showed up here for a reason. And for me, what I think of is the ERA provides that foundational legal protection. And Betty talked about that. It's important. Federal Constitution, state constitution. We need that. We don't have it. 80% of Americans think we do. They think we have equal legal rights. We don't. And 90% of Americans think we should. And I agree with that. So that's a very healthy majority. So we need to make it happen. And 27 states currently have an equal rights amendment in their state constitutions. 27. Minnesota is below average here. We're behind. We need to catch up and have an equal rights amendment. Here. So Nevada just added an equal rights amendment, and we are borrowing from them with their language. What Betty read was inclusive language, and we like that. And 59% of their people said yes. We want to be even higher in Minnesota. We're proposing Nevada's all-new, all-inclusive language. And what do we want?
ERA.
When do we want it?
Now.
So why now? Why now? Why are we here? Why are people energized? Why did women and young people show up en masse voting? We are the star of the North State, and right now, the stars are aligned. We have a trifecta in Minnesota. We have a clear, yes. Thanks to the voters, we have a clear path to pass an equal rights amendment out of our legislature in 2023 and get it on the ballot in 2024. So, we need that ERA embedded in our Constitution to give a clear standard for gender and sex protection. So, state ERAs have been the first line of offense in states that have it. It has been used in states to prohibit anti-abortion legislation or gender-specific discrimination. We know that. And we know the momentum is now. Not 10 years from now, now. 5 states are actively working on an equal rights amendment in their constitution. Minnesota is one of those. We want to get it over the finish line. So what do we want?
ERA.
When do we want it?
Now.
So what can you do? There's tables behind behind you. ERA's got a table. Talk to, call, text, whatever you need to do to contact your legislators. Let them know you want the ERA in 23. And talk to our DFL leadership. Let them know you want the ERA in 23. We need to make it happen this year. We need the time to have the conversations to be able to win the ballot with a yes vote in 2024. So what do we want? When do we want it?
Now.
All right, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, our Attorney General, Keith Ellison. He is here with us. We appreciate his support.
ERA! Come on now! ERA! I want you to know that my good friend Betty Folliard told me, don't thank me, thank the activists, but I'm going to thank her too. How about that? Betty Folliard. And thank the activists too. Give yourselves a hand. Now look, friends, we're coming here together in a moment in time. That moment in time is a moment when the Dobbs decision has come down. And y'all all know that, right? But what do we do in response to Dobbs? We passed the ERA. What do we do in response to unequal pay? Pass the ERA. What do we do in the face of domestic violence? Pass the ERA. What do we do when women are not given their fair due in this economy? Pass the ERA. We have got to pass the ERA. And the ERA is good for everybody. I know it's good for women, but it's good for this whole society. Because when women do better, everybody does better. We know this. This is a fact. And so, let me tell you, it is well within our grasp. We can do it. This is not an impossible thing. This is a thing we can do, we will do, we should do, we must do, but it's going to take all of us to do it. Let me tell you, in our Senate, Democrats have a one-vote majority, but we can get some Republicans on board. At least we're going to ask them, right? We're going to talk to them, right? Who's against equality? Who believes that we're not all equal in the sight of the Creator? Who believes that we're not equal and we should be equal in this society? I believe that when you say, we all say we stand up, we pledge allegiance to the flag, do we not? And at the end, we say, and liberty and justice for all. All means women. All means women are in that all too. So we got to do what? We got to pass the ERA. And let me just tell you, the ERA is something that is going to benefit children. It's going to benefit seniors. It's going to benefit working people. It's going to benefit farm families. It's going to benefit every single one of us. Let's finally do what we should have done decades and decades and decades ago. Pass the ERA. Thank you.
We're going to bring up Lindsay Port because Lindsay needs to go. So, Lindsay, this is Senator Lindsay Port. We'd love to have her speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Senator Lindsay Port, and I am the Senate Chair of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus here in Minnesota. We know all across the country that reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy is under attack. We need the constitutional protections for reproductive freedom, for the choices to make about our own bodies. And the ERA is our path towards that freedom. We are now 100 years since the first passage of the ERA, and this is our year here in Minnesota. We have a responsibility to stand up for the voters who told us that equality was on the ballot, and they voted to make sure that they sent a pro-equality, a pro-freedom, and a pro-choice majority here to the Minnesota House and Senate. It is our year to pass the ERA. support equality for all. Let's get this done.
I want to invite our 4 chief authors up. If they're all here, we have Senator Mary Kunesh, Senator Sandy Pappas, and we got our representatives here. Okay, the representatives are tied up right now, so we're going to let you guys start.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here to stand up for women and the rights of everybody. I'm Senator Mary Kunesh. 4 years ago, I passed the ERA resolution out of the Minnesota House. It was an incredibly memorable day, and then we sent it over to the Senate where it tanked. We didn't get a hearing. We didn't hear from them anything about moving this resolution forward. And so fast forward 4 years later, here I am in the Senate, and I am determined to once again bring this legislation to the Senate floor and pass the ERA. Right here. You stand first, folks. This is the bill. It is signed. It is ready to go into the hopper. And just as Senator Ports said, it is now time for us to work the people. Let them know how important it is that we add this to the ballot in 2 years, and let the people of Minnesota decide, do they want those words that state regardless of race, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, age, disability, ancestry, or national origin. Those are the words we need in our state constitution to ensure that we have protection for all. We heard a minute ago about how important this is for reproductive freedom, but I also want to remind you how important this is for pay, for equality in pay. Not just for everybody, but I mean especially women. If you look at the facts, did you know that it takes until December 8th every year for our Latinx women to make the same amount of money that a white man does? It takes until November 30th for our Native American women, who are paid 51 cents to the dollar of every white man. Thank you. We need to make sure that our black women are paid. They're at 58 cents per $1 for every white man. Moms, I myself was a single mom for a number of years. And this statistics that most moms make only 58 cents for every dollar that dads make is unconscionable. And so with this in your minds, I want to task every single one of you to get out there and work. Work through your communities, work through your churches, work through your book clubs, work through your every group that you come across, and remind them how important this is, and that in 2 years we need to make sure that this ballot is this resolution is on the ballot, and that we cement it into our Constitution. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for your struggles.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again from me for being here. I'm Senator Sandy Pappas, been an advocate for the ERA for a long time. So 2023 is the 100-year anniversary of what? In 1923 was when Alice Paul first wrote the ERA to be submitted to Congress as a constitutional amendment. Simple words, 100 years from now. Since then, it's still very relevant. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United United States or any state on account of sex. So Mary Kunesh talked about putting the IRA in the Minnesota Constitution, which is really important. But hello, we need the amendment, the 28th Amendment, adopted by the U.S. Congress. And we have our 28 states. Virginia was the last one pre-COVID to ratify. There's no reason why we can't have it. So another bill that we will be introducing in the Minnesota Senate is a resolution to Congress. Be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Minnesota, and we're going to pass this. This is the one that Mary passed in the House in 2019. And now with the trifecta in place, we're going to pass this in the House again and in the Minnesota Senate, and it doesn't need to go to the governor. It goes to Congress. Be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Minnesota that it urges the Congress of the U.S. to pass House Resolution 891, resolving that the requirements have been met to ratify the ERA and that it shall now be known as the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. So Senator Kunesh talked about working on the local level, but be sure you're a member of Congress and our U.S. senators, who most of them are behind it, except for those 4 that aren't. Make sure that they know that this needs to be a top priority and we need to get this ratified. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to get Curtis Johnson up here pretty quick. But in the meantime, we have Senator Scott Dibble to talk about the ERA.
Welcome to the first day of session. Welcome to the People's House, your house. It is so fantastic that you are here. You are the voice of democracy. You are the ones who make this place work. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for your being here, for engaging in this democratic dialogue, this conversation, pressuring us, loving us, educating us as policymakers to represent the voice of the people. That's what we're here to do. I grew up in a family filled with strong women. My great niece, Haley Baird Dibble, is right over here. She is the future. There she is. And I don't want her to live in a world that is the same as the world of myself, her mother, her grandmother. She deserves to have a constitution that spells out explicitly that that constitution guarantees the promise of this democracy, that everyone, regardless of the circumstance of their birth, is equal. That's what our state's constitution should say, without any hesitation, without any qualification. I know a thing or two about passing constitutional amendments. I was proud to be the chief author of the bill that allowed us to turn around, reject the anti-marriage constitution in 2012, and we turned around and passed that law to guarantee equality of marriage for everyone, regardless of who we love. We have Richard Carlbach here, who is the campaign manager of that mighty campaign. And Richard will tell you, and I can tell you, that passing this constitutional amendment onto the ballot is only the first step. It forms the foundation of an important conversation, but then that conversation is with the people of Minnesota. So then what's going to happen is we are going to go out. All of you are going to go out and knock on doors, and you're going to talk to people where they live. You're going to approach people who are out in their yards, working on their lawns, pushing their lawnmowers, and you're going to have a conversation with them, and you're going to talk about the values that unite us as a state. That's what we learned through the marriage. It seemed kind of hard. There were a lot of people coming at us. It was really negative on the other side, but we were able to talk about the reality, the lived experience, the daily lives of people who don't live in a place where their basic rights are, and who they are as human beings, are valued and guaranteed in that Constitution. And we're going to find out that at the foundation of this great state is that shared value of equality, of liberty, of freedom, and above all, love. Love for ourselves, love for our neighbors, love for the idea that we all do better when we all do better. So we are going to pass that amendment here. It's not going to be easy. We need to engage, and then we're going to go out and we're going to have an amazing conversation, and we are going to make our democracy better like we have done in Minnesota in the past, and we can do again. So thank you very much.
Okay, I want to bring up a wonderful woman who has graced these halls for a number of years, former Senator Patricia Torres Ray.
I am so happy to be here with you, and I am a former senator, but I will continue to fight with you, and this year we are going to accomplish what we have been trying to accomplish for many years. I was going to say something that Senator Kunesh-Podein said, but I will repeat it because I think it's so important. The voices of women of color have been absent here for many years. And now we have many women of color and indigenous women that have been elected to the House and the Senate, and they're bringing these messages. They are part of this coalition. We can no longer tolerate that a Latina woman just makes 46 cents on the dollar that a white man makes every day. We cannot tolerate that anymore. She read the statistics, they are real. It's happening to so many women that are working out there right now. You are here to change that, and I thank you for that. But I also want to make absolutely sure that today we say thank you, Betty Follier. Thank you. And
Everybody.
I said thank you, Betty, because it takes a leader to bring others to the table, to make sure that we show up, to make sure that we do the work, to make sure that we don't give up. Betty has been out of office for a long time, and she has not left the stage. She has not given up. She's been in every office in the Senate and the House to make sure that we're here today and that we are victorious today. Thank you, Betty Follier. We need more Bettys in this world. I am telling you, we have more Bettys who will get work done for women. Thank you so much.
We stand on the shoulders of all the ancestors who have fought this before us. And we thank all of the volunteers and activists in this room. And I want to just have people who are on our working group raise their hand and wave, okay? Wave, so people know they can talk to you. They can talk to you, okay? Oh, we have Senator Kelly Morrison.
Hi everybody, how are you doing? Are you ready to pass the ERA? I'm State Senator Kelly Morrison, and I'm here to tell you that it is far past time for us to pass the Equal Rights Amendment and to add them to our state and federal constitutions. I will also tell you that as an OBGYN, I know firsthand how fundamental bodily autonomy is to our ability to live freely. We must constitutionalize our rights so that women and people with uteruses are not treated like second-class citizens. We're living during times when access to abortion is threatened at every turn, and we know that the ERA has a proven track record of being the first line of defense against anti-abortion legislation. We've seen it in Pennsylvania, we've seen it in Connecticut, we've seen it in Utah, we've seen it in Nevada. When we constitutionalize our rights, we will have concrete protections in our court system, giving all citizens stronger leverage in the courts to protect against discrimination on the basis of sex and gender identity and expression. We're proud of our state here in Minnesota. We're proud of the many reasons this is a great place to live. And we like to think we're leaders in many areas, and we are. But Minnesota lags on equality, and we have unacceptable high gender, racial, economic, and social disparities. This new, more inclusive ERA language will help ensure that Minnesota addresses the unacceptable disparities that have plagued our state for far too long. We need ERA here in Minnesota so that future legislators don't overturn and rescind our rights. The time is now. Minnesotans were clear in this past election. They are sick of gridlock, and they delivered a pro-choice, pro-equality trifecta. Lead. Let's pass the Equal Rights Amendment today and for all of your work.
Okay, now it's my great honor to bring up the president of the League of Women Voters in Minnesota, Michelle Whitty.
Thank you so much. As you heard from Senator Pappas, we've already done this, right? 103 years ago, we passed a constitutional amendment that expanded rights for women. The 19th Amendment was ratified here on September 8th, 1919, right here, right? And who had to say aye? All male legislators, right? So this is really not that hard, right? The time is now. Those simple words that we passed in 1919, as Senator Pappas said, to vote shall not be denied or abridged on an account of sex. Those seem like such simple words. And there were 11 nays on that day, September 8th, 1919, 11 nays and 180 ayes. And we look back now and think how completely out of step they were. So is that what our legislature wants to look like now? I'm thinking, look back. You want to be on the right side of history. And we have proof, right? It seems ridiculous now. We made this massive change and actually allowed women to vote. And what happened? What happened? It's the beautiful thing that happened, as we know, is the richness of the tradition of what women and people of all gender expressions have contributed to our country, states, and local communities when everyone is given equal access. So we're here today, a full century later, but where are women in our representation? We still are 30% or less. 30% or less. In some states, some areas of government, we're down into the single digits of women serving in elected office. And we're still experiencing firsts, even for women now in 2022. But what that tells me is the voters know something, and that's the importance of putting this on the Constitution for the voters to decide. Because what did they do in 2022? They elected, finally, the first black women to the state senate for the first time in 164 years of statehood. So we know that putting women and giving women that equal right has produced great things. So here we are 103 years later, as people continue to gather here a century from now. Do our legislators want to be those people who said nay or aye, to be on the right side of history? The time is now. And we know, as you've heard today, it's not about legislation. We need the legislation to get this on the amendment so that the voters can decide. But we must have the constitutional protections that are required steps. So let's not let another century go by. We've done it before, and we all did great, right? Women just rocked the world. This is a nonpartisan issue, right? We have many women serving on all parties. So this is something for all people to stand up for so that we can really see the fullness of what democracy promises to all we, the people. Thank you, and thank you to all the activists here today.
And now I want to bring up our state director of the Equal Rights Amendment in Minnesota, Curtis Johnson.
Hello, ERA. My name is Curtis Johnson, and I am the state director for Minnesota ERA. Those who know me know that I'm literally more comfortable behind a camera than being up front, but that's because of that, this is really that important to me. When I started with the ERA, people would ask me, why do you support the ERA? It was very simple. It's like, well, my wife should have the same rights as I do, and my kids should have the same rights as I do. It's pretty simple. And then time passed, and what it came down to is that I simplified that approach. When it comes down to, when people ask me today, why do you support the ERA? I just tell them, it's the right thing to do. Period. It's just the right thing to do. Okay? It should not matter. Okay, if you were a first generation American, or a first American, or if you were brought here on slave ships, or if you were brought here because your mom brought you here, okay, you should not be discriminated against. I don't think that is a difficult concept. That's not a Republican concept, that's not a Democratic concept, that is an American concept, and it is something that is missing in our Constitution. We have the ability to do that right now. Now, I'm going to stay away from the national amendment because there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of good work on that. I'm going to stick to the state. Here's what has to happen. Okay, we literally, the reason we have not passed a state ERA right now is that we've not been given the opportunity to vote on a state ERA. We need the House to pass a resolution. We need the Senate to pass a resolution. Simple majority. Okay? This is really easy. It has to come out of committee, go to the floor, vote on the floor, and then it shows up in the next general election. Our next general election is 2024. So it's better for us if they vote on it in 2023. That gives us 18 months to mount a campaign. What you also need to understand is that voting on amendments is very different than just voting on anything else. Okay? So obviously you have to vote whoever, if the amendment to pass, it has to have more yes votes than no votes. Right? Makes sense. Okay? Amendments work a little differently. If you take your ballot and you do not do any, and you do not mark anything, okay, that counts as a no. Okay, so we literally need to make sure that we have more people who are saying yes than people who are saying no, and people who will not fill it out for whatever reason. Okay? So we were now in 100 years since the Equal Rights Amendment was first presented to Congress. Okay, that's a lot of time. Okay, I'm not a patient person. Okay, but now is the time, and you know, to quote one of my favorite people, you know, the time is right. Sorry, to quote one of my favorite people, time is always right to do what is right, and what is right is to pass the ERA. Thank you.
Okay, we have Senator John Marty here in the wings. We'd love to hear from him.
104 years after women received the right to vote, which was a couple of centuries too late anyway, and 100 years after ERA first being introduced, it is long overdue, but better late than never. And it's long overdue, and it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for, one, a lot of changes in the legislature in recent years, and two, people like Betty and this coalition. Betty, you've been doing it for 20-some years. We're making it happen, and this is the year. Let's make it happen. Thank you all for being here.
Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce one of our chief authors in the Minnesota House. Actually, we have them both here, so we'll bring them both up at the same time. We're going to introduce Representative Kali Herr and Representative Kristen Bonner to come up onto the stage. Hello, Minnesota! How are you? That's right, look at that big, beautiful sign proclaiming ERA now. That's right, that is right. You know,
because freedom was on the ballot. Freedom over our own bodies, freedom over our own destinies, and overwhelmingly, we chose freedom. That's right, for the first time this year, we can finally stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us, and we can boldly declare, it's our turn. That's right, it is our turn for equal rights. It is our turn for equal protection under the law. It is our turn to boldly claim that all people are free and equal. It's time to fulfill the promises made in the Constitution of the United States of America by publishing the ERA as the 28th Amendment to protect our rights and our freedoms as Americans. And it is time to follow 27 other states and solidify those rights and freedoms in our Minnesota State Constitution. Generations of women fought to get us here today. And generations are counting on us to ensure their liberty. We choose freedom, we choose equality, we choose our own destiny. ERA! Now! ERA! Now! ERA! Now! ERA! Now!
It is amazing to be with all of you in this space. This is our year. Representative Bonner already spoke about the issue eloquently, but what I want to share is a personal story. I came to this country, was born in Laos. My family fought with the CIA so that we could have the freedoms that that country did not allow us to. And we knew that if we did not fight with America, that would become a communist country and our rights to ourselves, our freedoms, and our beliefs would be taken away. My family and my ancestors did not die in a war to get me to America so that I would not have equal rights here. It is time for us to acknowledge that women are equal under the law. The fact that I have a 19-year-old child that I had to explain to her, a young woman, not a child anymore, why it is that we are still fighting when the belief is that men and women are equal, that people of all gender, sexes, races are all equal. It is not true under our laws. And so it is time this year, what I have been saying to all of my colleagues is that it is not just what we are fighting for on abortion access. It is not just fighting for fair wages for women. Wages that keep us locked in a cycle in which we continue to get paid less than men. And when you disaggregate that data, Hmong women and Somali women get paid even less. Hmong women get paid 55 cents to the dollar that white men get paid for the same job. It is not just about fighting for access to housing. We know that we don't invest in housing. It is women and children that disproportionately impact. This fight that we are having for ERA goes beyond just stating in our Constitution that we are equal. It goes to talking about all of the disparities that we have that exist right now that impact women. This is why it is critical. If we do not pass ERA, how do we ensure that the laws that we pass this year for abortion access are going to be respected? How are we going to believe that laws that I pass around, I have a bill that eliminates the pay history question so that women are not locked in lower pay into the next jobs they're going to. Absolutely, that's right. We should absolutely find out how is it that we can then enforce these laws when we don't within our Constitution even acknowledge that we are equal. And so this is the year. The fight is right now with this trifecta. This is our time to come together and to work hard and to ensure that people understand that the myth of that we have equal rights is truly just a myth, that it is not codified in our Constitution. And so let us work together let us not forget that this goes beyond us and the women who fought before us, our children and our children's children. If we do not do this now, they will live with the legacy of disparities that we face. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to this fight with you. We're gonna go out and get it this year.
Okay, we got one more speaker here. We got two more speakers. Good. And then I'm going to have our Vice President of the VRA Minnesota come up and wrap it up. But in a minute, first we have, my friend who sat for the last year and a half on the Attorney General's task force for expanding the economic security of women, Shaniqua Johnson.
Guys, one, I'm a little bit shorter than some of the women that went beforehand, and I'm not wearing heels, so I'm just kidding. But hello, everyone. Good afternoon. As we go through this space, my name is Shaniqua Johnson, and for those that don't know me, I have a couple of different titles in community, and one of them that I'm most proud of is being a woman from Minnesota. And I was born and raised in Wilmington, Minnesota. It's a small town in the southwestern part of the state. And I'm here to tell you, as you already know, just how important this is, how important ERA is to our communities, and especially to the women who look like me, who come from the same streets that I come from, and have had some of the same experiences that I have. And just because I have had amazing colleagues list up all of the wonderful things, and because you as activists and our community leaders have worked really hard to continue to keep this relevant, I'll simply touch on one thing, and that's the 100 years piece. I'm touching on that because you have to understand I'm 27, so I wasn't even alive when this was first introduced. A lot of us weren't, and in this space of understanding, that's how long it's taken for people to see me as equal, and I'm not okay with that. And I know for a fact that we are not okay with that, right? Harm was intentionally done in this country. For 4 times that century that we've been trying to make sure that equal is equal, and that yes is to the ERA. And that we have, as women, are being seen constitutionally as equal human beings. Just like that harm was intentionally done, we have to intentionally undo that by passing the ERA. So ERA is now, and we need to have that support. As we go through this space, and as you think about the folks that you're working with, and on those days that you feel a little bit hard, remember, we fought for 100 years. What's 100 more? And what's until we literally keep this space to make sure that everyone in our country is seen as equal, regardless of race, gender, religion, age. And there are plenty of things outlined right now in the Constitution. But I would not be able to run for state representative in 2018 if this was not a part of the conversation. I would not be able to stand before you now as a St. Paul City Council candidate running on the east side of St. Paul if it wasn't for the backs of you all as activists, for leaders that have paved the way like Betty, and for the community that's going to come up and say, you need to vote yes for ERA. Thank you.
Special guest here that has come from Senator Amy Klobuchar's office. I want to introduce to you Ruby DeBellis.
Thank you, Betty. It's a beautiful day to support the ERA. Thank you all for being here. And I would like to thank Betty for her tireless leadership on this issue. My name is Ruby, and I'm here on behalf of Senator Klobuchar. She had to be in Washington today, but I know her, and I know her commitment to finally passing the Equal Rights Amendment is unwavering. For a century, we've been overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and we know that we have to finish this job in this long-fought battle. Nobody knows this better than Senator Klobuchar. The past year has made clear that protecting equality remains fundamental to the lives of each and every American. We all saw the Supreme Court shred nearly 5 decades of precedent protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own health care decisions, leaving us with fewer rights than our moms and grandmothers. And Justice Thomas actually went further. putting a roadmap out to repealing other rights, including the right to contraception. If it wasn't clear before, it is now. Everything is on the line. This is why Senator Klobuchar is leading the charge to finally pass the Equal Rights Amendment federally. She introduced the resolution with bipartisan support to remove the deadline and has called on the Senate leadership to schedule a vote. Passing that resolution will bring us one step closer to ratifying the ERA and finally enshrining permanent protections for women, girls, and everyone in our Constitution. Let me be clear that a majority of Americans are on our side. According to the Pew Research Center, 78% of Americans support the Equal Rights Amendment being added to the Constitution. Right now, I'm thinking of the generations of women who have carried the torch for equality. From Alice Paul to Betty Friedan, Pauli Murray, Shirley Chisholm, and Gloria Steinem. And now it's our turn. Your grit and tenacity has been a real inspiration to Senator Klobuchar. She's going to keep fighting until equality is finally enshrined in our Constitution. Thank you so much for being here.
And I left this last speaker to last because I know that he's going to bring it home for us. I'd like to introduce you to the Executive Director of United Strategies, Richard Carlbaum.
Hey, Minnesota. You know, just over 10 years ago, this state was thrust into a conversation about freedom. And I had the honor and privilege of leading that campaign to make sure that Minnesota voted no in 2012. Because when it comes to freedom, it's something Minnesotans care deeply about. And then just this past November, once again after the Dobbs decision, freedom was at the center of the debate. And what happened? Minnesotans spoke loudly. They delivered a trifecta that now can pass the ERA. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot on the plate of this legislature, but we have to be here day in and day out to make sure that we make the case that there's an opportunity that not only protects the freedoms, but also the equality of everyone in this state. And this language that ERA Minnesota is putting forward is an inclusive language that incorporates so many different communities that deserve that freedom and that equality.
Yes. We demand equality. We demand equality. We demand equality. Now to wrap up, we have our Vice President of ERA Minnesota, Kate Quinlan Laird.
Thank you all for braving the weather and coming out today. It's truly amazing how robust Minnesotans can be. I appreciate it. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to some allies and co-hosts that we had today. We could not have made this day happen without them. And the work that they do is incredible, and we want to support their work, and their support of our work is truly, truly appreciated. And so if you don't mind, I'll just read out who those people were. And if you're here, make some noise when I say your name, okay? AAUW, Minnesota, and Minneapolis. Gender Justice. We have the Indivisible Alliance, and that includes Indivisible Minnesota, Edina Indivisible, Indivisible St. Paul, Roseville Indivisible, Chaska Indivisible,